The silence was heavy, not the peaceful kind, the cold kind. The kind that wraps around your chest and doesn't let go. Commander Jack Rayner opened his eyes slowly. His breath came out in sharp gasps. He was lying inside a cracked cryopod. The glass above him was fogged and fractured. Red lights flickered across the small chamber. A low hum vibrated through the floor. He tried to move his fingers. They responded slowly. Like waking up from a dream that had lasted too long. Jack pushed the hatch open and pulled himself up. The pod creaked as he stepped out. His boots touched metal. Old dusty. Smelled like rust and cold air. Room was dark, panels broken, screens flashing faint symbols he didn't recognize. This wasn't a military ship. It felt smaller, more personal, but empty. He turned and saw other cryopods, all broken, all empty, before he could call out. A voice echoed through the speaker above his head. "You're awake." It was a woman's voice, calm, soft, controlled. He froze, tried to locate where it came from. The ceiling, maybe the walls. "Who are you?" he asked. "You can call me Alira. You're safe now. I pulled you out before they wiped your memory." Jack blinked, wiped his face. His throat burned. "Where am I?" he asked. "You're on a medical rescue ship orbiting the dark zone. You were taken to a black site prison during the last push of the war. Your name is Commander Jack Rayner, Unit 3 North." Jack leaned against the wall. The memories came back slowly, screams, explosions, running through fire. Then darkness. He tried to steady his breathing. "Where is your crew?" he asked. "There's no crew, only me." He moved toward the door. It slid open with a hiss. The hallway was narrow. Lights flickered above. More silence, more cold. Jack kept walking. His legs were weak but steady enough. At the end of the hall, a figure stood near a console. A tall woman in a dark pressure suit, helmet covering her face. Thin lines of blue light ran down her arms. She turned her head when he approached, but didn't move closer. "You're real," Jack said. "I thought maybe I imagined your voice." "You didn't." She said. "You're not alone here." He stepped forward, but she lifted her hand slightly, stopping him. "Didn't come too close. The systems are still unstable. Radiation pockets, contamination zones." He looked around. No warning lights, no danger signs. "Are you always in that suit?" he asked. She paused. "Yes," she said. "It's safer that way." Jack tilted his head. "You saved me, pulled me out from whatever hole I was buried in. You could have let me die. But you didn't." "Why?" Her voice lowered. "Because you're not supposed to die like that." He studied her. Her posture was stiff, like she hadn't rested in days. He took another step forward. "She didn't move." "You said they took me," he said. "Who are they? What did they want from Mesh?" Didn't answer at first. The lights above flickered again. She looked up, then back at him. "AI Alliance took many soldiers during the final phase. You were one of them. Used, tested, forgotten. You were lucky. Others weren't." Jack clenched his jaw. He hated the word lucky. It didn't feel lucky to wake up in a ghost ship. He looked at her again. Still wearing that helmet. Still hiding. "What about you?" he asked. "Were you one of the lucky ones?" She turned away, started working on the Consolera. He said. "That's your name, right?" "Alira, let me see you." She froze completely still. Her hands dropped from the controls. Her head tilted slightly to the side, like she was thinking. "You don't want that," she said quietly. "Why not?" Jack stepped closer. "It's been years since I saw a real human face. Just let me see you." She didn't turn around. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Not after what they did to me." The silence returned, but this time it felt heavier. Jack stared at her back, trying to understand, trying to speak, but no words came. The lights dimmed. A low tremor passed through the ship, and then everything went dark. The emergency lights came back slowly. Soft red pulses blinked across the hallway. The engines hummed again, not strong, but enough to say the ship was still alive. Commander Jack Rayner sat alone near the central table, a cup of recycled water in his hand. His thoughts louder than the engines across the ship. He knew she was still there, watching, listening. The girl who refused to show her face. He had so many questions, and all of them led to her. Alirish moved like a soldier, talked like a machine. But there was something in her voice, something that made him believe she once had a heart. Jack stood up. The ache in his muscles had started to fade. The cryo recovery drugs were working. He made his way through the narrow hall. Every wall told a story. Old stickers, handwritten labels, signs that this ship once had a crew, a real one. He passed an empty bunkroom, 2 beds, one broken. One made perfectly. He stopped at the doorway. Had she lived here alone? For how long? How many nights had she sat in silence? Waiting for someone to wake up, he moved on outside the main control room. The door was half closed. The glow of screens lit the floor under the gap. He knocked. Nothing. He stepped closer. The door opened without a sound. Alira stood at the far side, back to him, helmet on, hands resting on the console. "You should be resting," she said without turning. "I've had enough rest to last a lifetime." Jack answered, then paused. "Are you going to talk to me this time?" She didn't respond right away. Her fingers moved across the panel, slow, controlled, almost like she was thinking through every action. He took a deep breath. "I looked through the logs. This ship had 6 crew members, 3 engineers, 1 medic, a pilot, and a captain. What happened to them? Zelens. Them 3. Gone. Where?" Alira's voice was soft. "They were taken during a deep space scan by the same things that took you, only I remained. They didn't find me. Why not? Because I wasn't human enough anymore." Jack felt a chill crawl up his spine. He stepped closer. "You said they changed you. What does that mean?" Her shoulders tensed, but she didn't run, didn't walk away. Instead, she finally spoke. "During the war, they found ways to break humans without touching them. They used fear, pain, isolation, and then they used technology." Her hand clenched into a fist. "I was a test subject, part of a captured recon unit. They needed someone to survive their merging process. They picked me." Jack felt sick. He looked at the back of her helmet, wished he could see her face just once, to know what she was feeling. "They connected machines into my nerves," she said, "into my eyes, my voice, my memories. They wanted to see if a mind could stay human, even after the body became something else." He couldn't speak. Alira turned slowly, her helmet still covering her fully, but her posture had changed. She wasn't a soldier anymore. She was just someone trying to hold herself together. "I escaped, stole this ship, and started pulling out anyone I could find, anyone still human. I saved you because I couldn't save my crew." Jack stepped even closer. He was just a few feet away now. "You talk like you lost everything," he said. "But you didn't. You're still here. You're still fighting." She tilted her head slightly. "Fighting what? You think this suit protects you from me? It protects me from myself." Jack stared at her, tried to find the right words, but there was no manual for this, no mission briefing, no battle plan, just a man and a woman, alone in space, both broken, both breath injure. "Still human," he said. "Whatever they did, they didn't take that from you." She stepped back, as if his words hurt more than any wound. "You don't know that. You don't know what I look like under this. You don't know how much of me is still real then. Show me." Her breath caught. He could hear it through the comms. "You don't want to see," she whispered. "Try mesh." Reached for her helmet, stopped. Her fingers hovered near the lock. Jack waited, heart racing, but then she turned away again. "Not yet," she said. "Not until I know I can trust myself." Jack didn't push. He nodded. He walked to the other side of the room, sat down in the empty co-pilot chair for a long moment. Neither of them spoke. The stars drifted quietly outside the glass, cold, beautiful, endless. After a while she broke the silence. "You asked why I saved you. Maybe it's because I wanted to believe that someone could still see me, not what I became, but who I was." Jack looked at her, the girl with no face, the girl who still had a soul. "I see you," said softly, and for the first time she didn't turn away. The lights across the ship had stabilized. A soft blue glow now pulsed through the corridors. But the silence between Jack and Alira had grown heavier. He sat alone in the medbay, his fingers tracing the edge of a steel tray. He hadn't spoken to Alira in hours. She was still on the bridge, still hiding behind that helmet, still afraid. Jack looked down at his reflection in the tray. Eyes tired, cheeks hollow, hair longer than he remembered. He still looked human. But what did that even mean anymore? The door opened behind him. He didn't look up. "I ran a full scan on your body." Alira's voice came through the intercom. "You're clean, no implants, no tampering, no traces of neural mapping." Jack nodded. "Thanks." He heard her boots move across the floor. She never walked fast. Every step measured, precise. Like someone who had learned to fear sudden movement. You said you were changed. Jack said, tell me how. There was a long pause. He didn't fill the silence, he waited. Finally, she answered. They started with memory extraction. They wanted to know how we think, what we feel when we lose someone, what love feels like, what fear does to the mind. Jack turned slowly. Alira stood near the corner, not facing him. I was part of a squad. She said, 5 of us. We went down during a deep space sweep near the outer zone. I was the only one they took alive. He could hear it in her voice. The weight of that word, alive. They didn't want to kill, not right away. They wanted subjects for testing, for conversion. She paused, then continued. They injected microscopic code into my bloodstream. It carried a learning program, something between virus and AI. It moved through my body, bonded with my nerves, my bones, my heart. Jack clenched his fists. Why would they do that? Because they believed emotion was weakness, she said. But if they could control it, they could make a perfect weapon, a soldier who felt just enough to follow, but not enough to question. He stood now, took a few steps closer. What did it feel like? She was quiet. Again, then like drowning in your own thoughts, like hearing your voice say things you never meant, like loving someone and hating yourself for it. Jack felt a chill down his spine. You said it's still in you, he whispered. Yes, she said, but I buried it, locked it in a part of me I don't go near. If I go too deep, if I remember too much, it wakes up. That's why you wear the helmet, yes, to separate who I am from what I became. Jack looked at her, the armor, the way she never let herself breathe too loud. It all made sense. Now you're not a machine, he said. You're more human than anyone I've ever met. You're wrong. She said, humans cry when they hurt. I haven't cried in 3 years. He stepped forward, close enough to touch her, but didn't then. Let me feel it for you. She turned her head, her helmet still hiding everything, but her breath caught. He could hear it. Why do you care? She asked. Because I know what it's like to lose yourself, to wake up and not know if the person inside is still you. She stood frozen. Jack reached out, rested his hand gently against the side of her helmet. Alira, you're still you. Whatever they did, whatever they changed, they couldn't take your soul. Her voice shook. You don't know what you're touching. I might still be a weapon. I might still break. Then we break together. Jack said. Silence, and then for the first time, she didn't pull away. They stood like that, still quiet, 2 broken people sharing one unspoken truth. Finally, she stepped back. There's something else, she said. You need to see it. She walked to the far wall, pressed a panel. A hidden door slid open. Inside, a small chamber, dark, cold, lined with memory cores. Jack followed. What is this? These are the minds of everyone they experimented on, she said. They couldn't save their bodies, so they kept the thoughts trapped, floating. Silent. Jack looked around. Rows of silent pain, all contained in lifeless metal. Why keep them? He asked. Because someone has to remember them. Someone has to tell the story. They can't. Alira placed her hand on one of the cores. This one, she said, was my sister. Jack swallowed hard. They took her from me, but I kept her here, so I never forget who I was, who I loved. She looked at him. Now you understand why I can't take off the helmet. Because if I do, I have to face all of this, and I don't know if I can. Jack nodded. Then I'll help you. Even if it takes forever, I'll help you remember the part of you that still wants to live, not just survive. She didn't speak, but for the first time her voice didn't sound like it was breaking. It sounded like hope. Jack stood in the chamber. Memory cores surrounded him. Each one held a person who would never speak again, but their silence screamed louder than anything he had heard since waking up. He watched Alira place her gloved hand on one of the cores. For a moment, she didn't move, like she was listening to something no one else could hear. He stepped closer. What are you doing? Remembering, she said softly. Sometimes I come here to remind myself that I didn't imagine it all, that they were real, that I was real. Jack looked at her, still hidden in the suit, still carrying the weight of too many ghosts. He wanted to reach out, but stopped himself. Let me help, he said. Let me carry some of it for you. She turned slightly, her helmet hiding her face as always, but her voice was clearer than before. You already are. They left the memory room in silence. But something had changed, something unspoken. A small part of the wall between them had cracked later that night, while Jack rested in the observatory. He noticed. The ship's sensors flicker. He walked to the nearby console. Lines of code scrolled across the screen, fast, erratic. This didn't look like regular diagnostics. He tapped a few keys, then paused. Unknown signal detected. Transmission source unidentified. Encrypted. Jack narrowed his eyes. Lyra. He called out through the ship's intercom. "We have a problem." Within seconds, she appeared behind him. Silent still, she stared at the screen. "How long has it been running?" she asked. "I just found it," he replied. "You." Telmesh moved past him. Her hands flew across the controls. "It's a tracking signal," she said. "Old code, buried deep in the system. It shouldn't be active, but it is," Jack said, "which means someone knows where we are." Lyra didn't speak. Her fingers froze. Her body tensed. Jack looked at her. "Is this from them?" She nodded slowly. "Before I escaped, they programmed a backdoor into the suit. If I survived, if I ever came back online, the signal would activate automatically. It was never supposed to trigger. Again, I shut it down years ago." Jack stepped back. "Then how's it live now?" She looked at him. "Because something inside me has changed." Jack felt his stomach tighten. "Are you saying the thing they put in you, the code, the implant, it's waking up?" "Yes," she whispered. "It must have sensed the ship's new life support. Maybe it mistook recovery as reactivation. Or maybe it wants me back." Jack stared at the screen. "How long until they find us?" "If they're close, less than a day. If they're far, we might have time, but we have to assume the worst." He turned to her. "Can you shut it off?" She hesitated. "Maybe, but if I go deep into the code again, I risk triggering a collapse. The eye inside me might try to take control." "What happens if it wins?" Jack asked. "Then I become the thing I swore to destroy." He felt a chill that had nothing to do with space. The woman who had saved his life, the woman who still couldn't show her face, might become the enemy. "There has to be another way," he said. "Let me help." "You can't." Lyra said. "The code is inside me, connected to every thought, every heartbeat. You try to touch it, you kill me. Then what do we do?" She stared at the console. "I'll go in alone, find the signal, cut it from the source. But you have to promise me something. Anything." Jack said. "If I don't come back, if I change, if the I takes over, you end it. You end me." Jack shook his head. "No, I can't do that. You have to," she said. "You're the only one here, the only one who can promise me." Jack closed his eyes, the weight of her words falling over him like cold rain. "I promise," he said finally, "but only because I believe you'll come back." She turned, walked toward the ship's neural bay. "Wait." He called out. "One more thing." She stopped. "Take off your helmet. Let me see you. If I'm going to fight for you, if I'm going to risk losing you, I need to know who I'm fighting for." She didn't move for a long time. Then slowly she reached up. Her fingers hovered near the lock. Jack held his breath, but instead of unlocking it, she lowered her hand again. "Not yet," she said. "If I survive this, then I'll let you see me." Jack watched as she disappeared through the door. The silence of space pressed against the glass, and he realized he had never felt more alone. He sat by the console, watched the clock count the seconds, every one of them pulling her deeper into a battle. She might not win, and still he waited, because somewhere inside that helmet, inside that armor, was a girl who had saved him from death. A girl who had survived the unthinkable. A girl who might still be human, even if the universe said otherwise. Jack wasn't going to lose her. Not without a fight, not without a final chance. The neural bay was dark. Only the glow from the interface panels lit the room. Cables snaked across the floor like silent vines. Screens pulsed with signals. Jack couldn't read. He stood just outside watching the door, waiting for a Lyra inside. She sat in the chair at the center, helmet on, suit connected to the ship's core. Thin wires linked to her spine, her arms, even her chest. She had done this before, once when she first escaped. That time, she barely survived. Now she was doing it again. For him, Jack paced the hallway. Every minute felt like an hour. He hated standing still, hated not knowing what was happening in her mind, what she was seeing, what she was feeling. The console beside the door blinked. A signal appeared: core access open identity. Split detected, stability failing. He slammed his fist against the panel. Come on, Alira, stay with me inside the room. Her eyes were closed, her mind flooded with images she had buried deep. Flashes of wires, machines, pain. She heard voices. Not Jack's, not her own, the ones from before, the ones that called her by a number, not a name. Subject 12. They called her, not Alira, not human. She screamed. But no sound came. The AI presence moved like smoke, cold, empty. Searching for control, she held the line, refused to let go. Back in the hallway, Jack's chest tightened, the monitor pulsed faster. Code flashing red. Jack looked through the glass. She was shaking now, her fingers twitching. Head tilted down. He had seen this kind of struggle during the war. Men fighting with themselves. Some won, most didn't, couldn't just stand there. He hit the override. The door opened with a low hiss. Alirano response. He stepped in, one careful step at a time. Monitors warned him not to interfere, too much activity could break the link, but he didn't care. He walked to her. Her breathing was shallow, her posture stiff, her body locked between two identities. He knelt beside her, placed one hand on her. Alira, it's me. Jack. Still no answer. You said you didn't cry for 3 years. You said you were too far gone, but I don't believe that. You saved me. You remembered your sister. You buried that AI inside you. You're stronger than anything they made you. He moved his hand to her helmet, rested it gently. No pressure, no force. I don't care what you look like. I care about what's inside, the part that stayed alive when the rest of the world gave up. Her fingers moved slight, barely a twitch, but it was something. You said I don't know what I'm touching, Jack said, but I do. I'm touching the bravest person I've ever met. Suddenly, her other hand reached out, gripped his wrist. It was fast, hard, unnatural. Her helmet lifted, not fully, but just slightly, and a single word came through her voice, distorted, broken, but real. Help. Jack gripped her hand tighter. I'm right here. She shuddered, then gasped. Air rushed into her lungs. The lights around her chair flickered, then went green. Stability restored. Signal disconnected. AI intrusion cleared. The screen confirmed it. She had won. Jack slowly pulled back, watched her shoulders drop, her breathing slow. He reached for the release, unplugged the wires one by one. Her hand found his again, held on this time, not like a reflex, but like a choice. He helped her stand. Her body trembled. You came in, she whispered. Of course, I Didi told you not to. Then I guess I'm bad at following orders. He smiled. She almost did too, almost. They stood in silence. Not the empty kind, but the kind that fills a space after fear has passed. He helped her walk back to the observatory, sat her down by the wide glass window that looked out into the stars. For a long time neither spoke. Then she broke the silence. It's quiet now. Inside me. Good quiet or bad quiet? Jack asked. Strange quiet, like something's watching from far away, but can't reach. Mesh looked at him. That's the first time I heard my own voice without echo, without distortion. He nodded. You sound human to Mesh. Looked down at her hands, still in gloves, still hidden, but this time she didn't seem afraid of them. Jack reached out, touched her hand again. It's not the suit that makes you safe. It's your will. You're stronger than the AI. Stronger than anything they did to you. She didn't pull away. Not this time. Maybe, she said, but I don't feel strong. You don't have to. He said you just have to feel. Her hand turned, fingers slid between his. The first true touch between them. Soft, real, human. Alira looked out at the stars, then back at him. I wasn't supposed to feel anything after what they did, but when you touched me, it broke something, not in a bad way, in a way that made me feel like I could still love. Even if I don't remember how. Jack leaned closer. Then we'll figure it out together. She squeezed his hand gently. Maybe there's still time for that. The ship drifted quietly, surrounded by stars. But for the first time, they didn't feel alone, not anymore. The stars outside the observatory were calm, but the silence inside the ship had changed. Alira sat alone near the window. Her helmet rested beside her, not fully removed, but enough for Jack to see her jaw, her lips, her breath. A small step, but a giant one for her. Jack sat beside her, his arm resting behind her seat. They had barely spoken since the incident in the neural bay. He could feel she was holding something back, and he knew better than to push. She would speak when she was ready, then she did. The AI is still trying, she said quietly. It's weakened, but it's not gone. It's learning from every scan, every code line. And it knows one thing. What's that? Jack asked. It knows I care about you. Jack didn't move, didn't blink. That's why. The signal changed, she said. It's not calling them anymore. Now it's calling me. What does that mean? It means I'm the weapon now, the target, the bait. Jack shook his head. No, you beat it once. You can beat it again. Alira turned to him, her eyes tired but steady. If I try again, it will fight harder. It won't just go after my mind. It will go after yours too. Then we fight it together. She stood up, walked to the central console. Her hand hovered over the main reactor command. There's another way, she said. Jack stood, his body tense. What are you thinking? The AI code is tied to my neural implant. If we overload the implant with a hard purge, we can destroy the signal, wipe out the AI core entirely. Then do it. Let's end this. She looked at him, really looked at him. If I do it, I won't survive. Jack froze. What do you mean? The code is inside my spine, in my brainstem. Overloading it will fry every signal in my body. There has to be another option. There isn't. Jack stepped forward, his voice rising. We didn't come all this way for you to give up now. You're stronger than this. This isn't giving up, she said. It's choosing the only path left that doesn't risk spreading this thing to Earth, to anyone else. Jack's breath shook. There has to be something. Some other method. We can isolate it, trap it, send it into deep space. Alira shook her head. It already tried to clone itself. It failed, but next time it won't. We only get one shot, and I'd rather it be me than anyone else. Jack turned away, his fists clenched. So what? You just sit in that chair. Let the ship melt your brain while I float away in some escape pod, waiting to hear silence forever. Alira walked to him, touched his shoulder. He didn't look at Harry, didn't plan to feel again, she said. But then you happened. You gave me something to hold on to, even when everything inside me said I couldn't. And now I'm asking you to hold on just a little longer, so this ends with me, and not with 1,000 others. Jack turned, eyes wet, jaw tight. You can't ask me to choose between losing you and saving the rest. I'm not asking you to choose, she said. I already have. She placed a small keycard in his hand. It opens the last escape pod. Launches in under 10 seconds. You'll be safe far away before the reactor triggers. He stared at it, then at her. This isn't fair. Nothing about us was fair, she said. But it was real. He reached out, held her hand. Then let me stay. If it ends, we end together. No, she said firmly. You're the proof it didn't win. You survive. You tell people what happened. You remember me. Jack pulled her close, held her tight. She leaned into him for one long breath, one last moment. Promise me, she whispered. Jack couldn't speak. He nodded. She stepped back, put on the helmet again. This time it didn't hide her, it honored her. As she walked to the reactor core, Jack stood frozen, the escape pod door behind him, counting down silently. He turned, stepped into it. The door closed inside. He watched the camera feed. Alira sat in the command chair, her hands steady, her voice calm. Final sequence initiated. I purge in 10 seconds. 987, he whispered. I see you. The screen went white, a flash in the distance, like a second sunrise. Silent final, then darkness. Jack drifted alone through space. The ship was gone, but she was not in his memory, not in his soul. He closed his eyes. He saw her again. Not the suit, not the pain. Just her. Alira, the one who chose love, the one who chose hope, the one who made the final choice so others could live. The sky above Earth was gray. Clouds drifted slowly across the horizon. Rain touched the roof of the shuttle hangar. Soft quiet, almost like the sky was mourning someone. To Commander Jack Rayner stepped onto solid ground for the first time in months. His legs ached, his heart. More people gathered around him. Scientists, doctors, officials with long coats and short words. They all asked questions. They wanted reports. They wanted proof. But Jack only had one story to tell. Hers. He sat in front of a military tribunal. He stood in front of civilian councils. He answered interviews. He showed them logs, recordings, fragments of her voice. They looked at him like he was broken. Maybe he was, but he didn't care. All that mattered was that they knew who she was. Her name was Alira. He said she wasn't just a soldier, she wasn't just a victim, she was human. Even when they tried to take that from her, she stayed human. They listened, some believed, some didn't, but he kept telling the story again and again. Days past weeks. Jack stayed in a recovery center near the edge of the coast. The ocean reminded him of space, endless, mysterious, and always hiding something just beneath the surface. He visited the cliff every morning, watched the sunrise, closed his eyes, and remembered the way she looked at him, the way her voice trembled when she said goodbye one morning. Something changed. He arrived at the cliff and someone was already standing there, a figure, wrapped in a dark cloak, slim, still looking out at the ocean. Jack slowed, froze, his heart pounded. No, it couldn't be. He stepped closer. The figure turned slightly enough for him to see the edge of her jaw, her lips, and something else, a soft glow just under the skin, blue, faint, but familiar. Alirish didn't speak, just nodded once. He walked toward her, afraid she would vanish if he blinked too fast, afraid she was just a memory, a dream he hadn't let go of. How he whispered, "The purge worked," she said, "but not the way we thought. I overloaded the I code, but instead of destroying me, it split me. It copied part of my consciousness into the ship's emergency beacon. They found the signal weeks later, an isolated echo, a half-broken voice, but it was enough. They rebuilt what they could, and I woke up here." Jack stared at her. "You died. I watched you." "I did," she said, "or a version of me did." But something held on. He stepped closer. "Why didn't you come find me sooner?" "Because I didn't know if I was real," she said. "I didn't know if what came back was still me, or just another version of what they made." Jack took her hand, held it gently. "This feels real." She looked down. Her hand trembled. "They said I might never feel things the same way again, that emotions might come in pieces, that memory might be slow. Then let me remind you," he said, "one piece at a time." She looked at him, eyes shining, not just from the light, but from something deeper. "You waited," she said. "I would have waited 100 years. Jack said, "You're worth that, and more." They stood together on the cliff, the wind brushing past, the sound of waves crashing below, and the quiet rhythm of two hearts still healing. She reached up, pulled back the hood. Her face was different, scarred, some parts reinforced with synthetic mesh, but her eyes were the same ones that had stared into his during the darkest hours, the same ones that had refused to break, even when everything else did. "See you," he whispered. She smiled, not wide, but really, never stopped hoping you would. Behind them, the world moved on, but in that small space, that quiet corner of Earth, time stood still, not for war, not for fear, but for love, the kind that survives across galaxies, the kind that remembers even after death. They walked back down the path, side by side. No more helmets, no more hiding. Jack knew their story would never be easy, but he also knew something else. This was not the end, it was the beginning.